Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. I tell you what, I smell a rat. I smell a lot of rats. I smell a lot of stinky, greasy rats, and they all smell like shit, and they all smell like SHTF. I, like many of you, have had it with everything that's going on. We're tired of seeing America being trashed by our own government, by our supposed leaders, by educators, by lawyers, by big business. We're getting tired of it because we're seeing where it's taking us, folks. There's an old proverb, for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. Well, I'm seeing it crystal clear, and I'm hearing it very loudly. I know where they're taking us, folks. Do you know where they're taking us? Well, if you've been with us for any amount of time, you know it's to shit is the fan land. That's where they want to go. That's where they've taken us. But they don't just want to take us there, folks. They want to take us all the way down. I was looking at some footage sent to me by Paul, and it showed dozens and dozens of ships parked offshore. Now, it could have been anywhere on the planet. That could have been in China. It could have been in LA. It could have been on the East Coast. Could have been anywhere. It was being portrayed as the West Coast of the United States, but we've also gotten reports. They've got shipping containers, dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of them, just anchored in the Pacific Ocean, full of goods, full of items Americans need, like auto parts, truck parts, tractor parts, electronics. Things that America needs are parked offshore. Why? Well, I mean, we can take a guess. Well, there's not enough dock workers. There's not enough truckers. There's a problem with the infrastructure that's not allowing this to get around. Whatever the deal is, their excuse. It's excuses. It's talking to Crispy Bacon about this. It is, in my opinion, and that of many others, that this is being done intentionally to cause shortages, to cause us to suffer more, to punish us, to make us more compliant with their demands. Well, the demands are coming from people that have not our best interest in mind. The people in charge, the ones in DC, the left-wing lunatics in the state houses and in City Hall. What they have in mind is their best interest, government's best interest. And so you can be expected, folks, to suffer what they have in mind. The only way kind of through this with any semblance of normalcy is to be prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. Because these bastards, folks, they're going to put the screws to everyone, and people will turn on people. Now, I want to bring this subject up that I've talked about before, because it's important right now. And it is the big question. What are the men and women in uniform to these United States of America? What is the military to these United States of America? What are veterans to these United States of America? Right? Without the military, comprised of regular patriots, folks, fighting their asses off and giving their lives to battle the Brits of King George back in 1776, America would never have been free. That is why today, folks, freedom and those who love it, right? Freedom, and for those who love it, they always look to the military as the last line of defense against tyranny. That is why today, those of us who cherish liberty look to our veterans and active duty military to see what their opinions, what they're thinking, to understand their morale and where this country's at. Right? Biden is destroying the military, folks. So is General Milley Vanilli. So is Secretary of Defense Austin Lloyd. So is the rest of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And I see that as a primary threat. Let me say that again. I see them, as a primary threat to the defense of these United States. The military members swear an oath, folks, to protect our nation from all enemies. All of us vets, active or otherwise, took that. If there is no military to protect us because it's being dismantled, it's being taken down, it's being weakened, morale is being destroyed, we are in worse state than when they're strong. To see our own government, folks, and specifically the president and his puppet masters, intentionally dismantle our military, it appears to be an act of war against the nation and the people. And that's how I see their efforts. I wanted to go over that again. It hasn't changed. In fact, I think it's actually getting worse, that they're speeding things up. Now, I just did mention General Milley. And I want to kind of go over what's going on there. It's pretty much disgusting and incredible. In Congress today, the treasonous rat, General Mark Milley, justified his secret calls to communist China, promising he would warn them of a possible attack. How is that? How does that exist? How does that happen? I don't understand how that happens. Now, there was a very tense exchange when Senator Tom Cotton asked him, General Milley, he said, "Why haven't you resigned?" Well, part of the answer here that we got out of Milley, his emphasis was, quote, "This country doesn't want generals figuring out what orders we are going to accept and do or not." Well, if that's the case, why did General Milley get his Chinese commie counterpart on the phone and tell him what orders he would and wouldn't accept from President Trump? You see, he's trying to say that, generals take orders. Is that what Milley's trying to say? That the country doesn't want generals figuring out what orders we are going to accept and do or not. Well, yeah, the country doesn't, but generals aren't the country. Generals are their own thing in the Pentagon. The country doesn't want generals making political decisions. The country wants generals making military decisions. That is how to break things and defeat the enemy. But what do we get out of him, right? We get a bunch of gaslighting, a bunch of lying, a bunch of hypocrisy, right? Because he did make political decisions. Don't expect him to end up in a yellow jumpsuit, folks. Don't expect it. And while we're on the military, I'm just going to stick to this and just go right down the fucking line. The Navy SEALs have been told they're undeployable if they don't get the Jim Jones juice. Now, if you're not familiar with the Navy SEALs, you should be familiar with the Navy SEALs. They are a very, very, very elite special forces unit that does some of the nastiest work on the planet. There's a lot of special forces in all branches, folks, that do a lot of things, right? But the Navy SEALs are told, yeah, you better do it. You better do as the president says, or you're not deployable. Folks, we've already been told that in the military, if you do not go drink the Kool-Aid, the Joe Biden Kool-Aid, if you don't drink it, you can be discharged. Joe Biden wants them to be dishonorably discharged. Right? You can suffer big consequences, courts-martial. You can lose all of your VA benefits, folks. And this is more than just little non-rates who have been in for 3-4 years. This is all military men who have fought. These Navy SEALs, men who have been out there doing the worst job that they love to do. It is an absolute terrifying job, and they do it. And a lot of them have done it for 10, 15, 20 years. And they're being told if they don't accept someone else's medical decision on their behalf, that they're undeployable. If they're undeployable, that means they're out of uniform. They're unserviceable. And therefore subject to NJP and other proceedings. That's how I see it. If you're not deployable, then you're violating the rules of the game. And this idea, their attorney, I think this is their attorney, says, these guys are not, speaking of the SEALs, anti-vax. They just, given the extraordinarily low risk to them and the substantial risk of unknown long-term effects, aren't comfortable with it. This idea of labeling people as anti-vax, well, that's a demonization technique. And it doesn't matter what your defense is as a Navy SEAL, as Force Recon, as a Ranger. It doesn't matter what your excuse is. All you have to say is, I don't want it, and you are labeled an anti-vax. The same way I can say, all I want is freedom. And big government, leftist, liberal libtards are going to look at me and say, I'm a right-wing, domestic violent extremist, white supremacist, racist, Nazi, KKK. All I said was I want to be free. I want my rights recognized by the government. I need the government to obey the Constitution. That's not how they hear things. You can tell them what you want, but they no longer hear any of it, folks. They no longer hear any of it. Unbelievable. Now, this has jumped right back into the news, and it has to do with that Marine, that lieutenant colonel. It's not a bad gig to have, being a lieutenant colonel, right? You're not up there in the Pentagon yet. You're not a general. You're not even a full bird colonel, but you're there at the top, right? So Lieutenant Colonel Scheller, guess what? He has now been arrested and sent to the brig, that is jail in the Marine Corps. Why? Because he spoke out against the weak U.S. generals for surrendering Afghanistan and stranding Americans, American allies, military allies, and other American, shall we say, good buddies. Right? Everyone got stranded there, as well as, folks, Washington, D.C. arming Taliban terrorists. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So General Milley, folks, can be publicly known and admits in Congress again to have spoken to the enemy about his promise to not obey an order from Trump. And that's no problem. But a lieutenant colonel can resign his commission, speak publicly asking for accountability from the Biden, Austin, Milley military, and he is jailed for it, folks. My recommendation to myself, I said, self, this is what I'm going to recommend you do. Refuse to be arrested. Take and adopt that mentality now, or you will only see daylight through the bars if they ever come for us. And that is what is being discussed right now, folks, is at some point they're going to start coming for us. Who are they going to send? Are they going to send these little trolls, like the little short-haired troll military girl? I think she was Air Force Staff Sergeant, who said when she knocks on the door and gives an order, if you don't obey, you're going down because your constitutional rights don't matter anymore. Remember that little trollop talking all tough? Bring it on, right? You just better bring a fucking sandwich too, because it's going to be a special kind of day. Right? Are they going to send the military, or are they going to send their little street shock troops out here, Antifa and BLM and Black Bloc and other little commie groups? Are they going to turn them loose on America? Or are they going to turn loose foreign nationals who would love to see mayhem and chaos here? And I'm speaking of illegal immigrants who have been let in by the government, Central and South Americans, Haitians, Afghanis who showed up that are actually Taliban. They have a number of different ways they can come at us, folks. A number of different ways. Let's move on if we shall. I have to be very careful with a lot of these topics. And I want to thank you guys all for coming here, for supporting us at Patreon. It is what? $2 a month, 7 cents a day. If you want, you can contribute more. That's good. Keeps the lights on. Right now, I'm at an undisclosed location. I think it's a good idea that I remain at an undisclosed location. I think we all need to be very aware of what's going on around us as the stupid increases. Anyways, New York Governor Hochul is to deploy medically trained National Guard troops to replace unvaccinated healthcare workers in hospitals. I still want to know, with regard to this, all of these doctors and nurses that they're going to bring into the medical system, what jobs did they used to do that now they're going to be told you can't do those jobs, you have to do this other job? Were they already working in the medical industry? Were they all, because they're medical people, like you aren't a pottery maker and then you're like, 1 weekend a month I'm going to go to the National Guard and be a doctor. It's not how it works. You're a doctor in real life, you're a doctor in the National Guard. You're a nurse in real life, you're a nurse in the National Guard. They're already doing these jobs. So how does this work? Right? It doesn't make any sense. Right? Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of this hat. There's no rabbit in the hat. There's no magic trick here. This is smoke and mirrors and a bunch of lies. Absolute lies. Now, I want to keep going. There's just too much to not talk about here, folks. Down in Florida, the great state of Florida, folks, that's going to be one of the hotbeds of conflict. Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, parts of Pennsylvania, up through New England states. There's going to be hot spots everywhere, folks. But get this. Down in Florida, DeSantis is kind of at the forefront of fighting these bastards. He has now authorized an investigation into Facebook for allegedly interfering with elections. My response to that is prosecute, prosecute, prosecute. Don't just talk about it. Don't just authorize it. Prosecute. There is enough information out there to start prosecuting these people. And I mean prosecuting the ever-loving shit out of them. Now, for example, let me give you this for example. And this is huge, folks. They got caught. The bad guys got caught. 24 people were caught on video stuffing a drop box with 19,000 tax returns in Georgia. Former Representative Jack Kingston went on Newsmax and broke this news on Tuesday. Folks, they're getting the evidence is there. The evidence is there. These drop boxes are Facebook. Remember, they were Mark Zuckerberg drop boxes. It is unbelievable what's going on. Now, I have this. I had a back and forth today with one of you that's on here right now. And I wanted to read the last thing I wrote to this Prepared Mind patron. I just said, stay calm, plan, prep, train, and keep a sharp eye. If we didn't listen every day to the song that the piper plays, we wouldn't know the tune and we wouldn't know how close we are to the end of the song. And what I mean by that is what we do here every day. We document what is happening and how bad things are getting. If we didn't pay attention, we wouldn't know the song. And the song is SHTF. The fat lady is singing, folks. She is warmed up and she is now singing to the song the piper's playing. And if we didn't pay attention and do what we do here every day, we may not have known how close we are to this getting really, really nasty. Right now, if you're new to Patreon, if you're new to YouTube, right, thank you for showing up. On YouTube, be sure and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Now, every day here, when I do the 1 hour broadcast, it's my monologue, and then you guys have Q&A for free on Patreon. I want to thank you guys for being here to do that. But we need to know, folks, we need to pay attention. We need to see what's going on in DC, at the state capitals, around the country, around the world, so we know where we're at in this song. And it is getting nasty, folks. That old saying, it ain't over till the fat lady sing. Well, that bitch is singing. She is singing. Now, I've shared with you political decisions being made in Sweden, Norway, the Netherlands, basically European Scandinavia. And they said, no more of this bullshit. No more vaccines, no more lockdowns, no more mandates, none of that. So we're done. We're done with it. Well, here in America, I said it's a little bit different. America is going to be the battleground for the Great Reset, the New World Order. They need to destroy America. They need to destroy our Constitution. They need to destroy our freedom. Because what will that do to the rest of the world, folks? There'll be no more shining example of freedom left, because they will rewrite American history. They will remove and scrub from all history books the America you know. If they win this, folks, it's not like we're just going to have a bad fucking week or they're going to double our taxes. They're going to erase us in America and on the world stage. The world will no longer have an example of fighting against tyranny, defeating tyranny, and gaining their own freedom and independence. So because these bastards, some call them cocksuckers, because they know they have to destroy America, they won't back off the way they did in Norway and Sweden. Joe Biden said this, came out and said, 98% of the American public must get the Jim Jones juice before things get back to normal. I thought it was we needed 60% exposure to have herd immunity. I thought we needed 60% of people to take the Kool-Aid, then 70%. Well, then 80, 85%. Now we're up to 97, 98% before things can get back to normal. Unfucking believable. Unbelievable. They don't want to quit. They will fight us in this all the way to the very end. They're not quitting, folks. Let me give you an example of them not quitting. When was the last time I talked about the Joe Biden economic plan called Build Back Better? It has been months. I think they came out with that after the inauguration before February. I think they came out with that, and then they just stopped talking about it. Well, 90 Proof Nancy came out today, and she's calling Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan the Obama agenda. Well, I completely forgot about Build Back Better because they've been too busy destroying shit, like tearing down the wall literally at the southern border and letting everyone flood in, like destroying our credibility around the world with the military and our diplomatic relations. Not just the military, but, you know, what is it? France has basically said, well, fuck you, America, because they got screwed out of a security deal. So they've destroyed our reputation militarily, internationally with business, everything, folks. And they're continuing. They're not stopping. There is no building back better. Remember, folks, let's see, you can't make order out of chaos until you have taken order and turned it into chaos. So they can't build back better until they're done tearing everything down. And it is the Obama agenda, folks. It is to fundamentally, that means foundation, the bottom, everything that rests on there is the fundamental Foundation. They need to tear America down to the foundations and fundamentally change it. Obama said it. He wasn't fucking lying. That's what they want to do, and that's what they're doing right now. Absolutely doing it right now. By the way, get your questions into Jolene. We're about 5 minutes away. About 5 minutes away, folks, from your questions. This one, when I read this today, it fucking set me off. Now, in New York State, they had Governor Cumho. He was a sacrificial lamb, right? He was more like a wolf, a predator, sexually harassing women, sexually assaulting women, groping on women. Who knows how many he bedded down because he forced them to, or bullied them, or coerced them, and they don't dare come back up because he has gone after people who have tried turning him in for sexual harassment and worse because he retaliates against them. Another crime. So essentially, Governor Cumho gets to leave office. He resigned, surprise, and he's not being charged with any crimes. So he was replaced by Governor Kathy Hochul. I want to call her Governor Kathy Hochul Cumho. Put a little hyphen in there. But get this, she is turning New York. She's turning New York into something disgusting. Her church. She says this, quote, "I need you to be my apostles." Because she says the unvaccinated Christians aren't listening to God. So you see, folks, you always have to understand which God it is who someone is worshiping. In the case of this replacement for Andrew Cumho, the new New York governor's God is government. Is there anyone more dangerous than a communist or a fascist with a messianic complex and in a position of power? In other words, I want to thank Bonnie Blue for that. I just had to read it verbatim. In other words, the governor of New York is claiming that the government of New York is their God and they must obey. Christians aren't listening to their God, so they're sending other weak Christians out to evangelize them in the name of their God and I guess their Holy Ghost. You know, Governor Kathy Hochul. It's disgusting, folks. This is a religion to them. The Jim Jones juice, remember that? Jim Jones had a cult. They went down to South America, to French Guiana. They all drank Kool-Aid, folks, that was laced with poison, and they all died. They followed their cult leader. They listened to their God and his apostles. That was a bad mistake, don't you think? Looks like they're playing the same tune, making the same mistakes. Greta the climate Grinch, Thunberg, decided they would, the world leaders decided they would let her come out and scold them again. And she did, and nobody gives a fuck. It's all a bunch of shit, folks. It's all a bunch of shit. Now, this is absolutely incredible. I want to cover this and then I'll get to your questions. I just couldn't leave this one alone. This is a mainstream media piece, folks. In South Dakota, their governor is Kristi Noem, and she is being picked on, bullied, castigated, lit up, right, for her hypocrisy after getting caught in a scandal. You may not have heard this great, huge, massive scandal, right? She abused her power by using her office to help her daughter get a real estate appraisal license. That's the accusation. And then when asked about it, she didn't address the allegation, but instead claimed it was an attack on her children. Unfucking believable, right? The Biden administration, Biden himself, the military, the Pentagon, the spokesman, Jen Psaki, Raggedy Ann, the bitch, none of them will answer a single fucking question about how they screwed it up so bad. But the mainstream media wants to talk about Governor Noem and her daughter, who has a real estate appraiser's license. Folks, I'm not making fun of real estate agents, real estate appraisers. I'm not making fun of general contractors or plumbers, electricians. I'm not making fun of anyone. But you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a real estate appraiser at any restaurant. They're everywhere. There's lots of us everywhere. It's a very common job. It's a very normal job. It's not a big deal, you know, but they want to make that into a big deal. They're saying that she is gaslighting, right? That she's lying to the world. But Hunter Biden, folks, can lie, smoke crack cocaine, bang hookers on camera, and keep pics of underage girls on his laptop, while simultaneously recording himself and writing emails discussing his quid pro quo deals with Russia, Ukraine, and Chinese government officials, individuals, and businesses in order to get Gigi Biden, Daddy Biden, aka the big guy, his 10% kickback. Bribe. And the mainstream media wants to go after, right, someone else. How dare a Republican woman hold office while her daughter gets a real estate license, real estate appraiser's license in the state of South Dakota, where no one gives a shit about real estate as a license any more than a driver's license or a license to make donuts. But what they're doing is they're attacking yet another strong Republican, because in South Dakota, folks, guess what? They never locked down. I don't know if they ever had any mask mandates, but they never locked down. They hate South Dakota. They hate Governor Noem. They hate all of us, folks. They hate us. They're coming after us. They're a bunch of big, smelly, dirty, greasy, shit-covered rats. That's what the political left is. Let's do this. Let's just take a little quick breather and then get to your questions.
Are you ready?
All right, we're back. Jolene's got some questions for us. I'm sure of it. There's no way we could go through a day like this, a week like this, a month like this, a fucking year. We hated 2020 so much, right, that we're still making fun of 2020. Folks, what about 2021? Is it that much better? Is it any better? 2021 is seeing the absolute destruction of our Constitution. We're seeing the destruction of the legitimacy of government at the federal level. We're seeing the destruction of the military. The final pieces are being taken out of the economy. The banking system, our retirement, our money, our wealth, our country is being handed over to private institutions to enrich themselves. Unfucking believable, folks. Remember when we said we're going to go into a Great Depression? Remember when we said they're absolutely destroying the country and it's going to take 10 years to get out of it? Oh yeah, the clock is ticking, folks. All right, we got Patrick Honesty, and he says, what is the chance that we can still remotely control the aircraft drones we left in Afghanistan land? What is the chance that we can still remotely control those aircraft? Helicopters, no chance. I don't think they can control the helicopters at all. I don't think they can be remotely drone piloted. Some airplanes, yeah, they take off and land themselves. I don't know how many aircraft were left there. As far as drones, they can be hacked into. As we know, American drones were hacked into by Iran. One of our $250 million super drones was hacked in by Iran, and then they controlled it and flew it and then landed it, and now they own that technology, right? Way to go, Obama. Now, Iran, once again, this is why this question is important. Shortly after President Biden, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, General Milley, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and the rest of the Joint Chiefs, shortly after they gave $85 billion worth of military hardware, munitions, explosives, equipment, uniforms, etc., etc., etc. Shortly after that, we started getting some images of that equipment being in Iran. I have a funny feeling, folks, they sent anything of a technical nature into Iran to have it swept for any computer controls, to have any remote control capacity disabled, right? And then also to be able to take it apart and then manufacture it themselves. So they have the equivalent or a rough equivalent of U.S. military hardware. But yeah, especially the drones, I'm sure they would remove any American chips and put in their own to make sure that they are safeguarded against being retaken over by ours. Look out, folks. Look out. Let's see what else we got on the board today. What, just off the hook. Off the hook. We got insert clever YouTube name here. Great name. This person says, if General Milley has given aid and assistance to a foreign country, what makes you think they wouldn't invite China to assist communist U.S. Army in confiscation? Oh yeah. It's a great question. Let's see. If members of our military at the highest levels of command have committed what many of us consider to be an act of treason, while others believe that Mark Milley should just resign, kind of like Senator Tom Cotton. Generals, retired generals, other military generals said he should resign at the very least. And where is the courts martial? Anyways, if these guys, Mark Milley and others like him, can tell China, their good buddies, not our good buddies, their good buddies, all about Trump's plans and how they'll protect them, what would stop them from inviting Chinese military into our country and assist these treasonous scumbags that are still in the military, assist them in confiscating our Second Amendment right? That is going door to door and saying, hey, we know you got stuff, just bring it out. That would be obvious, over the top, in our face treason to such a high degree that the shooting would start instantly and it would not stop, folks, ever, until every last one of them was either worm food or swinging from a yardarm. And when I'm talking about who is they, the traitors in Washington, D.C. and at the Pentagon and in command all the way down through the structure, all the way to Academy, where apparently they've got little communist bastards coming up through West Point. They don't want to invite absolute chaos in this country, which is what that would cause instantly. The moment we heard, folks, that there is Chinese troops anywhere operating in our public, in our cities, assisting other U.S. agents to confiscate weapons and arrest Americans, everyone, everywhere at that moment would go over to the cabinet on the wall. There's this little sticker that says break glass in case of emergency, and then kill every communist in sight. They would break that glass. They would arm up. They would lock and load, and that's how they would stay for the rest of their lives. They don't want to do that, folks. They want to keep us off guard, uncertain, questioning the reality as they gaslight us and lie, bullshit, refuse to answer questions, continue to make America look bad, continue to make America a horrible place. Remember Trump's slogan, "Make America Great Again"? Remember Trump saying, let's bring businesses back to America so we have manufacturing jobs here? Remember when Trump said, let's build a border wall and protect our southern border from invasion? And what have we got now? Bernard Shreve Jr. checks in. Hey, Bernard. He says, why is the UN, that's the United Nations, why is the UN not having a humanitarian call for countries with abusive law enforcement? Oh, what a great comment. I just gotta love that. Today, we posted out here a terrific video. It's on Patreon only. Folks, if you're on Patreon, you guys here, you know you can go read all of the news links, go look at all of the videos, whether they're military or medical, whether they have to do with audits or idiots, right? They're on Patreon. Every news story I cover, and then news stories that I'm not allowed to talk about, they're all here. So I posted this, folks, and it's an incredible video. The Australian Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, is speaking to the UN, the United Nations, talking about what a great place Australia is. Now they value people's rights and freedoms and liberties. While this speech is playing, where he's congratulating himself and patting himself on the back, real footage of what's going on in Melbourne and other areas of Australia is playing, showing footage of brutal police state violence. Folks, these people in charge are liars, they're hypocrites, and they're pieces of shit. This was a fantastic video that was put out. Abusive law enforcement is one thing. How about violating people's human rights? How about governments completely, folks, completely ignoring their constitutions, violating the rights of everybody, their human rights? These are crimes, folks, crimes against humanity. To violate someone's human rights is a crime against humanity when a government does it. And so you have Australia, you have Canada, you have parts of the United States, you have parts of European nations where there are complete and total bastards out there violating people's rights. Now, you have to be careful. I got kind of zinged on this one earlier today, but there are lots of videos out there of a lot of things happening. There was a video of Italian police standing down, joining their countrymen, taking off their hats, their helmets, and joining the people in protest of what is happening in this world. Right? The United Nations doesn't give a shit about you. The United Nations doesn't give a shit about me. It doesn't give a shit about any state in the United States. It doesn't give a shit about the people, any of the people anywhere. This is about them. This is about their power, their rules, their structured system that they want in place. They couldn't give a fuck about anyone they never have. Now, there may be some people within the United Nations that have some belief systems, and they're like, yeah, we're really helping people. But the real ones making decisions, the ones in charge, don't give a flying frog's fat ass. They don't give a squirt of piss. They don't really care, folks. This is about their control. Remember how I've been talking about the United States government? The U.S. government is the United States government. It is a corporation, like a business, like Coca-Cola. Imagine if Coca-Cola, folks, was headquartered in Washington, D.C., and that little, small, tiny, city-sized piece of dirt that is not a state. Imagine if Coca-Cola was headquartered in Washington, D.C., and then Coca-Cola said, you know what? We're going to control all 50 states from here. Oh, no, it's cool. We know that we're only Coca-Cola, but we've decided we have the power and authority to do whatever we want, to send police or law enforcement agents with the power of Coke out of Washington, D.C., to go into states and arrest people in the name of Coke and put people in prison in the name of Coke and not give them their trials in the name of Coke. Coca-Cola. That's essentially what the United States government is with regard or with relation or in relation to the states and the people. It's a completely separate jurisdiction with very, very limited authority, very limited authority. It is no different than Coca-Cola, folks, except they claim to be the sovereign government and lord of everything. It's a lie. It's a trick. The longer they tell that lie, the more they play their game. Right? The more people are fooled. But on the same time, at the same time, or on that same token, the dime that's dropped, people are waking up to what really authority should that little piece of dirt with the United States government that doesn't give a shit about us. Why should we listen to it? What power does it really have? Aren't the states sovereign? You bet, folks. It's an incredible thing. Okay, I got the blood pressure message. Yes, my blood pressure is doing absolutely fucking fantastic. My ears are ringing right now, folks, and I haven't been firing any weapons. We got Frankie Rios and says, it's amazing how many times people are getting kicked in the face by tyranny and still refuse to believe it is coming for them. Most notably, law enforcement officers and other statists. The literal kicking in the face is happening in Australia. Now, like I said, it was good to see. It was good to see those Italian police stand down. Now, I want to address law enforcement and anyone wearing a uniform in this particular statement of this section. Right, the uniform is a symbol. The uniform is a symbol of service, and a policeman's uniform is also a symbol of civilian authority. It's a symbol of it. And so we as non-active veterans and civilians, we see military uniforms as a symbol of service. And so we respect it. We see police officers with their uniforms, which is a symbol of serve and protect, as well as a symbol of authority. They have arrest authority. We see that also, and we respect that. Now, the real problem is the occupant of those uniforms. What is the occupant of the uniform doing? In the military, we know that our young men and women are put in harm's way and go and they serve the country, they protect us. And we respect, revere, and love them for it. You get to someone like Mark Milley, who's wearing the uniform. Respect the uniform, but I do not respect the man, because he is not serving anyone but himself and this agenda, this narrative, this New World Order Illuminati plan. Now I'll switch over to law enforcement. Police. Hey, I respect the uniform. I know what the uniform is about. I know what the uniform represents. Service, right? They're peace officers. They're supposed to be peace officers. And sheriff's deputies still are peace officers. But they're supposed to be that. And so we respect them and their authority to make arrests on the behalf of everyone else to protect us from criminal activity. Now, if someone doesn't wear a mask, is that a crime? Can someone be demonstrably committing a crime because they're not wearing a mask? Well, John, germs can be spread. Folks, germs are spread with masks. The mask manufacturers say so themselves. They're not perfect at stopping germs. So is there a real crime that's been committed? So this uniform that we're supposed to respect, that of law enforcement, that is deciding to arrest people, knock down old women, break their hips, spray them in the face with chemical agents, arrest people violently, go into their homes, kick down their doors and arrest them. I respect the uniform, but now, like General Milley and these other scumbags in the Pentagon, when we see officers committing great acts of violence that aren't necessary, that are in violation of the concept of them serving and protecting, And if we see them abusing that authority, that upsets people a great deal, and they'll remember those people. So folks, yeah, good cop, good military, bad military. We're going to have to be the judge for ourselves when the time comes. If someone comes to my door and knocks, I'm going to say, what do you want? And if they say, I want your guns, I'm going to say, well, you're wearing the wrong uniform. You need to be in a Gestapo uniform. Right? You need to be in Soviet military uniform, because that's what they did. You can't just say, I'm following orders, or I need a paycheck. And we have right now, to my pleasure, we have law enforcement officers at the state trooper level, at city police, and at the sheriff's department level quitting their jobs and leaving those jurisdictions where they're being told that they don't have individual rights and choices, that they have to obey any order, and they themselves have to get the Jim Jones juice. And they don't like it, they don't want it, and they're quitting, folks. Sadly, what is that doing? It's leaving nothing but the weak and the leftist police and military in place. That's the idea, folks, is to split them off, divide them, and then have their shock troops, their obedient dumbasses and servants. See, if you're following orders that violate the Constitution, violate people's rights, if you're following those orders, you're not working for the people. You're not working for the Constitution or the government. You're working for Dr. Evil. Let's do this. I got Jenny Jen checking in. Hey, Jen, with a question. It says, John, what advice would you give to someone who still lives in a city and can't get out anytime soon? I have a cousin that is medically disabled and really can't leave. At least she lives in a nice area, but that can change at any moment. Yes, it can. What we're coming down to, folks, is, can you leave? Can you move? Can you relocate? I know a lot of you are in the process of doing it right now. Congratulations. A lot of people can't, because of a medical disability, because of their job, because they don't have the money, whatever the reason is, they can't leave. And so what you're facing there is a bunker in scenario, right? You're not going to be able to bug out. You're not going to be able to move out and relocate. So you've got to adopt the attitude of being in a bunker. Now, bunkers are great. They're very safe places, right? A lot of times you guys see me in my bunker. They can be underground. They can be above ground. I've talked about, get sandbags, folks. Get sandbags and put them on the inside of the wall or the outside of the wall at your place if it faces the road. And that is your protection against flying pieces of lead, right? You can bunker in, literally bunker in. You can put sandbags on the inside and the outside, right? Bunker. There are a lot of elderly people, civilians, veterans, etc., that are like, you know what? I'm too damn old to run. I can't run. I don't want to run. I don't want to relocate. I'm going to make my stand here. You see, this fight that's coming, there are going to be, shall we call them, battle lines, areas of great conflict and interest. People are going to go to those areas, but everywhere is going to be a potential nightmare hotspot. A lot of people don't want to run away from problems. A lot of people want to run to the problem and solve that problem. I went to the RMZ, got it all set up, and then I just felt called, right? Like someone grabbed a hold of an invisible leash or collar that I had and yanked me back to the continent, to the continental United States of America, to be here, because I can't swing in a hammock drinking a pina colada while everyone else is fighting for their fucking lives and their country and the Constitution. A lot of us, in other words, are called, and we answer. And how we answer, how we're called, it's all individual. You may find that you want to be right where you're at in a city so that you can participate to the degree that you're capable of, whether disabled, elderly, blind, I don't know. But we all got to find our niche So that's my advice is if you can't go, instead of thinking about running, think about bunkering in. Think about how you can make a stand. Think about how you can contribute to solving the problem. And the problem is a bunch of fascists and communists trying to take over our country. We may not all get a chance to have a good discussion with Mark Zuckerberg or the CEO of Coca-Cola or President Xi Biden, but we're all going to get a chance, I think, to talk to a communist at some level. Okay, now we got Kaz. Kaz is checking in with some of his black pill wisdom, I'm sure. He says, are we Americans, we patriots, we red-blooded, Constitution-loving, clinging to guns and Bible types, are we ready to accept that when they, and they is the Democrats, the globalist corporations, rhino Republicans, weak Republicans, or anyone who doesn't obey their oath? I'm going to go further than you did, Kaz, and that's okay. I just taking an opportunity to kind of ride your tailcoats there on the idea. He says, are we ready to accept that when they say we, they are not talking to you? They don't respect or recognize us as Americans, and that there is now two Americans, two Americas, and balkanization has already happened. It's in progress. It has happened. The steps have been taken to balkanize, to divide us, to pit us against one another. They've taken that step, and they don't see us as Americans, folks. We see us as Americans. We see ourselves as patriotic. We see ourselves as good. We see ourselves as law-abiding. We see ourselves in all of these good things. We remember our history. We know our American history. We know our rights. We know the Declaration of Independence. We know, right, there's this thing called the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor that was supposed to be about freedom. Statue of Liberty, liberty meaning freedom. The statue represents America, land of the free, home of the brave, right? But the government in Washington, D.C., and many state capitals and many cities within many states, these Democrats, these rhino Republicans, these god-awful supporters of tyrannical government, and folks, all the way down to the district attorney level, they've shown us who they are and shown us their colors. They don't see us as Americans. Remember, they keep saying and saying, well, their democracy has been stolen and they need to get it back. And that we are domestic violent extremists and white supremacists and KKK and Nazis. And folks, you can be black, brown, you can be Asian, it don't matter. You can still be a white supremacist if you believe in freedom. I accept that that's how they see me. I accept that they see and have created two Americas, or rather two classes or two types of American people, but they don't call us Americans. They see us as the usurpers. Can you fucking believe that? As if we stole this country. That's how they see us, folks, for real. They see us that way. Unbelievable. We got Frankie says, hey, John, remember when I said several months back that they were beginning the Night of the Long Knives? Now it's become self-evident, hasn't it? Well, yes. 2021, thankfully, 2021 has not been mega violent. Thankfully. But the Night of the Long Knives, folks, where they come out, where they break windows, where they go door to door, where they drag people out of their beds, a night of murder, that really hasn't happened, not yet. Can it happen? Yes. Will it happen? Most likely. Will it benefit the government? Yes, it will. Will it wake up the American people and cause a response? Yes, and that's what I think they're afraid of. I think they're afraid of the response. What they're seeing in Australia, Italy, and other countries is the people are now responding with violence towards the government. First, people protest. Then people do civil disobedience, disregard the new rule. And then the state becomes aggressive. And then violence on both sides. That's where we're at. So the night of the long knives, I think, in my opinion, is when they once again turn the scumbags loose on us. That's Antifa, BLM. They send them out with their guns, their knives, their bats, and they just start trashing America again. That could happen. That may happen. I don't know what the exact circumstances are going to be to cause these things. We just need to know that history has shown us that they have happened and therefore can happen again. Current events have demonstrated that our government does not have our best interest in mind, nor the Constitution, nor the Declaration of Independence, nor the Bill of Rights. So we are at tremendous risk from that corporation, Coca-Cola, the United States Coca-Cola Company in Washington, D.C., thinks they own us, literally own us, and that they own our cars, they own our homes, they own everything, they own all of our money. They think that we should be happy as slaves under them because we have it so good, right? That's what they think. And we need to get used to that idea that, yeah, that's how their belief systems work. We got Florida checks in and says, I don't see how we will ever be one country again. Not in the current state that it's in. Currently, folks, with the elected governments in place, the bureaucrats in place, the courts in place, the absolute corrupt nature of these politicians, yeah, we will never have the country that we once believed we had back. We will now have the country that they want us to have. Or, and this is the prediction, that they are going to create a massive civil and partisan war in this country. And as long as the government maintains control, they don't give a fuck if we kill each other. In fact, they'll use that as an excuse to say, see how bad you citizens are? We need to take away your guns and your rights. You abused your First Amendment privilege of free speech. And look what happened. All these people died. They're liars, they're hypocrites, they're gaslighters. That's all a fucking lie. But we do have a chance to win our country back, or rather take back freedom, by dissolving the authority, taking away the authority of tyrannical institutions that are violating their oaths, violating the limits to their authority, and violating our rights, the people's rights. Thank you, Florida. But we won't ever be a country under the current system. There's going to be some big changes, some Thomas Jefferson type changes. If that's it, then that's it. We've gone past 1 hour, folks. The week is still young. The week is still young. Can you believe it? And I feel like I've already had 100 tons of shit piled on my head. Oh, we got David checks in. He says, John, I'm not wishing or calling for violence, but it almost feels as if it would be easier if there was a clear and obvious need to fight back, rather than this needling away of our rights. Now, understand this. I don't incite, promote, glorify, glamorize violence. I can tell you that America would not exist were it not for violence against tyrants. Now, what the original colonists said, and I'm hoping some people out here, you guys all remember this. I'm going to use a paraphrase. I can't remember the quote exactly, but that is that we, meaning the colonists in America, don't want to fight. But if we are visited with violence, then we will have nothing, no other option than to respond with violence. Okay, that's what we're now waiting for. We're waiting for there to be knocks on doors and literal violence visited upon us by the authorities. And then people will start shooting back. That's what Lexington and Concord was about. It was finally the people said, look, we've had enough. We're not going to go to their forts, their arsenals. We're not going to go attack them and their ships. But when they attack us again, that is going to be the start of it. That's the point in time we're coming to. Not to glamorize it, but to understand we need to be ready as Minutemen. We need to be ready as patriots. We need to be ready as lovers of liberty and valuing our liberty more than our lives, so that if we are visited with violence, then we have no other choice but to defend ourselves at this point, because government has refused to acquiesce to the authority of the Constitution as a restrictive document. They've refused to acquiesce, to bend, to stop what they're doing and back up and obey the Constitution and the restrictions imposed upon the government by the Constitution, which is our document, our guarantee. It is an insurance policy. The Constitution is basically an insurance policy. It's a set of rules, and the government is supposed to abide by it, but they're not. And when they don't, and then they decide they like being in charge, they like having all that authority, and they start abusing us, now the government has lost its protection. You see, the Constitution protects us from government. The Constitution also protects the government from the people. Think about it this way, and I do like to look at things different ways. Imagine that. We, the people, we've had the Constitution. We say, see, the First Amendment says we have the right to free speech. And see, we have the right to protection from unreasonable searches and seizures. See, we have a Second Amendment, the right to defend ourselves, to keep and bear arms. We have these rights, and this Constitution is protecting us from you, the government. Now, the government likes being the government. It likes being in charge. It thinks it's doing a good job. It's administrating the country and taking care of business. Well, we, the people, can't dissolve the government and get rid of it, because the Constitution has created the government. So the government holds the Constitution, says, hey, we have a right to exist with this Constitution. That's their only authority for existing, folks, is the Constitution. Right? We have a right to take that power away from the government. That is our right, to take the Constitution back and say the government is no longer authorized. Right? The Constitution protects us, and it also protects the government from us. That is to say, if the government's doing everything properly, if it's obeying the Constitution, then we, the people, would have no reason to get rid of the government and throw it away and replace it with a government better suited to protect our liberties and our rights. You see, once they quit following the rules of the Constitution, it no longer protects the government from our response to their violence. Don't think you're violating any rules or laws, folks, if we're being attacked by a government that treats us like the enemy for having done nothing except work hard, obey the law, pay our taxes. These thoughts are coming, folks. People are realizing it and waking up going, well, how legitimate is a government that attacks its own people? How legitimate is a government that abandons its own people overseas? How legitimate is a government that punishes people for not accepting its medical mandates? What kind of country is that? What kind of country is it that allows private corporations to step and walk all over people and destroy them, steal their property, their money, their wealth? What kind of government is that? Who wants a government that does everything that our government is doing right now? By government, I'm talking again about that little corporation, Coca-Cola United States up in Washington, D.C. People are waking up, not because of what I'm saying, but I do ask that you share this video and others with other people, because the message is finding open ears now. People are wanting this information, folks. A way to think about government other than it's almighty and supreme when it's not. We don't have to become apostles for their religious beliefs in DC. Right? We're free to worship as we see fit. I don't have to believe anything they say. Right? I'm not committing a crime. I have harmed nobody. Nobody is harmed. I'm not a criminal. They can't touch me. They shouldn't be able to touch any of us, but they're going to start doing that. So we are prepared. Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense with a plan, because chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours? Folks, Semper Fi. It's a Marine Corps motto, means always faithful. I don't have to be faithful to a tyrant. I don't have to be faithful to a tyrant's government. I am faithful, however, to what I believe and know to be moral, right, just, and true. That's what I am faithful to. What is moral, right, just, and true. I hope that you are as well. Godspeed to all. I'll talk to you very soon.